Hello, my name is Nina Helvis, and I am a third year lighting design grad studying at the University of Cincinnati, and today I will be talking about the wonderful world of lighting. So, what does lighting do that we don't usually notice? Lighting affects emotion, establishes atmosphere, and it provides a sense of direction and focus. Things that we see these three traits, places that we do see it a lot often are restaurants. There are many restaurants ranging from cheap, affordable restaurants to your luxury restaurants. We tend to maybe spend a little money to go to the nicer ones whenever there's a special event, and usually those restaurants have either a theme or a specific aesthetic. So the picture on the left here is a picture of McDonald's. So McDonald's is a fast food chain. It's meant for you to go in and go out, and not necessarily for you to stay in for a long period of time. But throughout the years, McDonald's has progressively looked a lot better aesthetically. But we still see that with lighting, it's still very, I would say, very bland. There isn't really a sense of focus. We still have a general purposeful lighting design, so we can see clearly in the space. There are some focuses on the walls where we see some artwork, but other than that, a lot of the lighting is used either for decoration or just for its general purpose, which is lighting a room. But then when we look at images such as the restaurant in the middle, we see a lot more focus. We see focus on the centerpieces on the table, we see focus on the closet back there, and focus on the doorway as well. Also, the most important part, we see that there's a focus up in the ceiling, mainly bringing attention to the crest in the center. So with these focal points, the room itself is probably a little dimmer. It gives you a different sense of an atmosphere. The warmth of the lighting complements the wood, but it also gives you a sense of comfort, especially with this being a family Asian restaurant. But a lot more on the expensive side. And on the right hand side, we see that there is this Japanese restaurant. Being that it's a Japanese restaurant, there's going to be a focal point, and that focal point is the cherry blossom. We see that there are lights focusing on the leaves themselves, bringing out the emphasis on that tree. And we also see that there are attention brought to the bar itself, especially on the countertops where the alcohol resides. That gives attention to the alcohol, which is probably what the restaurant makes most profit out of. We see that there are underlighting on the steps. Not only does that aid as safety, but it also connects with the bar itself with its color palette. And we can see sconces on the side. Same thing with the restaurant in the middle, if not so more. We see the warmth from this restaurant. We get that it has a cohesive design, a cohesive aesthetic. It looks like it's more generally lit. It looks brighter than the restaurant in the middle, but the color palette is pretty similar. So unlike what we see at McDonald's, these other two restaurants have a lot more focus and direction for your eye. Another place where we might see lighting affect our emotions is hotels. We go to hotels usually for vacation. Some are just the purpose of getting a place to stay and sleep overnight. And then some hotels where we go to are where the vacation is. We get to go to the casinos and all the things that the hotel provides. So on the left side, we see that this is a lobby for Red Roof Inn. Red Roof Inn is pretty affordable. So aesthetic wise, that it's not, it's more stark and sterile. It's not necessarily supposed to be created as sort of residency where you would want to stay for that long. The purpose of this hotel is probably just for you to stay in the room overnight and then leave and go on your merry way. So we see that there are the fluorescent lights that just do a general wash. There's not really any focus onto anything. But all it does, it does what it's supposed to do. It just has a general purpose. Same thing with the McDonald's restaurant. It's just an even wash, general purpose, well done. I can go in and I can see everything. And now we look at the picture on the right. The picture on the right is from the Venetian in Las Vegas. And we all know that Las Vegas is a city covered in lights with luxurious and expensive hotels. And just getting a room in these hotels is a vacation on its own. You have restaurants in these hotels and you can gamble and do all sorts of things, see shows, etc. So the amount of effort and detail and themes that they put into these hotels are greater than what we see in like a Motel 6, where it's more of a duplicate and cookie cutter. And so we see that in the Venetian, we already know that the color palette is this gold rich color. And so we see that there's focal point on the architecture itself. We see that there's focus on every single column, on the archways and the paintings themselves, and also the centerpiece. Everything has a focus, everything catches your eye. There's a sense of direction, and it's still evenly lit, and it still does what its purpose. But here now there's an added element as to what catches our eyes. And now let's move on to the next places. So the next place that we usually see and we usually go are the malls. We go shopping a lot, and a lot of times storefronts are also have the three main aspects in lighting. For example, the image on the left is from Victoria's Secret. We see that the lighting itself is very discreet. We don't really see the fixtures themselves. We see that they're small, minuscule, and they do what they're intended for. We see that there is focus brought onto this center island, and there is focus brought on each of the cabinets. The purpose of those focus is to bring attention to the product itself. If there really isn't a focus towards the product, the customer might not be drawn to it as much. And especially in a store like Victoria's Secret, the color scheme's usually black and pink, but majority black. So if everything were to not be, if there wasn't a sense of direction towards the island in the middle and all these other cabinets, it might not catch our attention as much. But it also might happen where it's all about product placement. If you were to put put lingerie or underwear that is white on the very top of your lingerie pyramid, the white might be washed off very easily because it's closer to the light itself. And maybe that's not something that everyone catches, but you might realize that you don't pay attention to that specific product as much because it's not the first thing that catches your eye. It's usually what is more saturated and colorful that catches your eye. And now when we look at the store on the right hand side, this is a luxury brand. This luxury brand is called Versace, and there really isn't, in this picture, there really isn't a display of products. But we can tell that the lobby itself is one very crisp and clean, aesthetically pleasing, and it provides the general aesthetic of higher end. And we see that the fixtures themselves are bringing the focal point to itself. It's bringing its own attention. It's adding on to the luxury versus not only just as the purpose of lighting the space, but it's mainly used as decor in comparison to the Victoria's Secret store. We might see that the fixtures are smaller, are more discreet. They're not meant to be prominent in the store, but these chandeliers over here are meant to be looked at. Similar to when you watch a Disney movie, maybe Beauty and the Beast. When you see that chandelier brings on the focus, and it adds on to the grandioseness of the ballroom. Now, when we go to a more literal aspect where we actually see lighting fixtures more widely used, are concerts. Concerts, half the time you're really just enjoying the band or the DJ on the stage, but a lot of times what we don't realize is that the lighting brings effect, emotion to the music. It brings excitement. It is what drives the band and also the audience. When you are sitting in darkness and all of a sudden a flash of light and bang, bing, boom, you see the colors, you see the beams of light. This adds on to your energy, and it also flows with the music. It almost brings out the emotion that the song is trying to portray, and that's how lighting affects your emotions in a concert. And now moving forward, every day in nature when we're walking around, lighting is also just simply affected within weather. When we talk about simple emotions like anger, creepiness, or happiness, romance, we can usually pick pictorial things from nature to describe these emotions. For romance, we might think of sitting on the beachside watching the sunset, seeing the more saturated colors, and watching all that beauty blend together. When it's creepy, we might think of a moonlit night, heavy clouds, where it's dark, but we only see the moon piercing through the trees, and that brings on that creepy effect. Or maybe it might bring on a peaceful effect, if that is what you feel. And usually when we think of anger, we might think of a storm, a cloudy day, and usually with that, we don't get as harsh of a sunlight, but we get more you would say gray tones. It looks like the world itself is just dim enough where everything just seems diluted. And now when we think of sunny and happiness, we think of the sun shining bright and hot in a clear sky. And these are things that we don't usually notice within nature. That affects our daily lives. We could be walking around on a sunny day, obviously, and then suddenly a large cloud runs right across the sun, and that just changes the entire atmosphere. It becomes cloudy. Maybe you might think it will start to rain with that, it establishes your emotions, establishes how you're feeling in that specific space, in that specific time, and it is just around nature. It's nature's most natural light. So in summary, lighting is everywhere. Lighting is in anywhere you go. From the most simple of things, like the bathroom stall in a restaurant, to complex things like a concert or even a nightclub. We don't always look up and see what is there, but when you do pay attention to it, you realize that these hidden things are what affects your emotions and what drives you towards them. And that is the magic of lighting. And I think it is a tremendous thing. Well, thank you for watching this short little presentation, and I hope you learned a lot. Thank you so much.